What's up YouTube, it's Ben Nader, and in this video we're going to be talking about which jobs you should recruit for. But right before we dive into that topic, I want to make sure you're a part of my Facebook group, 6-Figure Recruiters. Link in description. There's over 10,000 recruiters, entrepreneurs, people in the staffing business. Just a great place to be to collaborate, network, and learn more about recruiting. The first question that you should ask yourself, and be totally honest about this, is how good of a recruiter are you? Now stick with me till the end here, because I promise you that if you've answered this question honestly, you're going to get immense value out of this particular video. So the key here is that there are certain elements of every single job and every single niche that require certain levels of knowledge or elements of information that you need to know based on where you're at in the game. That's why I mentioned if you're a beginner, if you're intermediate, or if you're a seasoned vet. Kind of like a walk before you run type of scenario. If you can understand that concept, it becomes easier and easier to identify which jobs are going to be easier to work on, which jobs are going to cash flow, and where you should be. Let's start with the client. What jobs that you work on, what jobs that you take on heavily depend upon the client themselves. Always start here, because ultimately your client is where the buck stops. Quite literally, they're paying you, right? So if your client is good, meaning they have good communication, they have a good response rate, they take on your candidates that you bring them, and they're overall just a green flag client, a client that you would see yourself doing business with long term. As I said previously, this is 100% a walk before you run scenario. So the roles that a beginner would take on are vastly different than the roles that a seasoned vet would take on. Different factors that play into that are going to be the time to place, the ability to find the right candidate, and the ability to retain a good relationship with your client. For example, you don't want to walk into a super hard to fill C-suite level role when you're a beginner and you know nothing about C-suite or VPs, directors, and you're going to take 3 months to fill the role. You're going to get fired by the client. It's not going to be a good look, and it's not going to be a good use of your time. If you are a seasoned veteran and you've already placed at the executive level, and you can place somebody in 30 days or less and collect that $30,000 fee for the C-suite role, that's your element. That's your wheelhouse. That's where you should be. If you're a beginner, obviously you should go a little bit more on the lighter side of the scale and place more in the low-hanging fruit, as I always say. That would be logistics, warehouse, admin, those types of roles. Places where there's going to be volume, but the roles are going to be easier to fill. And I'm talking about a couple of weeks, not a couple of months. But the payouts will still be large because you can charge a lower fee with higher volume. It is my experience in building a recruiting empire that you should start where your experience is, right? So if you have the experience to build out a massive empire with high-level roles, what I call tier 3 level roles, right? Then you should do that. If you don't have that experience, you should work on the tier 1 level roles and then move yourself into tier 2 and then eventually tier 3. You will get there, but again, walk before you run scenario. One of the biggest reasons that I say you should start off with these lower level roles if you're just beginning is that you want to cash flow. Cash flow is king in business, in any business, not just recruiting and staffing. But if you want to actually make money, i.e. cash flow, you have to start with roles that you can actually fulfill. Regardless of where you are on the spectrum of experience, here are some critical items that you should look on as to whether you're going to work on a certain role or not. Consider how difficult the search will be. You should also ask yourself, is this something I can actually recruit for? Is this a position that I could potentially place advertisements for? Is there a large candidate pool or a small candidate pool for this role? Those questions alone right there will get you off on the right pathway. If you ask yourself those questions and answer truthfully, not just by thinking about the money and the payout, that will come, don't worry. If you're considering the actual journey, what it's going to take to get to the actual check, you need to understand those factors right there. Now, once you've identified whether or not the role is actually going to be worth it to you to fill, identify whether or not the terms with the client are agreeable. This is a question that I always ask myself, and I always encourage other people to ask themselves. what's in it for me? You should always be thinking in these terms. You always want to be serving others, right? Relationship building and serving your clients is the thing that you do in recruiting. However, you do have to always consider what's in it for you. Of course, this is a very subjective concept. It's going to be very individual to whomever is actually making the decision. Are you willing to work X type of deal for X type of dollar payout? That, my friend, is an equation that you must solve on your own. You must look at the numbers, take a look at the client, take a look at the niche, take a look at the role, everything I mentioned previously, and understand whether or not that's a role and a client you want to work with. If you're honest and legitimate about every single thing that you're talking to yourself about when you engage in these roles, when you look at these different clients to work with, then it's probably going to be a green light every single time. Like I said before, some people always just go for the shiny object. They always go for the big money, like that $30,000 executive level director placement. And that's fine. However, if you're at a beginner level and you see that shiny object and you're like, man, I really want to make that placement, it's $30,000. Consider the fact that it's going to take you way longer. You're not experienced enough to get there quite yet. However, the manufacturing facility down the street needs about 6 drivers, and each driver is a $5,000 payout. That also is a $30,000 payout when it's all said and done. So you have these two that are both $30,000 payouts, right? But this one is going to be way easier than this one for you. Which one are you going to take? The bottom line here is to stop looking at dollar signs and start looking at real data. This is what matters. Your return on ad spend, your return on time, your return on your energy and sweat equity. These things are of utmost importance because at the end of the day, do you really want to be working on roles that are going to give you nothing but headaches? Or do you want to work on roles that are actually going to be relatively smooth and still pay you out? So the purpose of this video is ultimately to help you take on better roles over worse roles. And with that being said, place more candidates and collect more fees. All right, so if this video was of any value to you, please smash that like button. Please join the Facebook group, link in description. You're definitely not going to regret it. And subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Hit that bell alert button so you know every single time I come out with a brand new video. Until then.